The Hatchcast is brought to you by the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. The Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation empowers students to learn through action by providing campus-wide programs, courses, and resources to test ideas, foster an entrepreneurial mindset, develop empathy, and create new ventures. Learn more at eship.msu.edu.
This episode of the Hatchcast is brought to you by the MSU Entrepreneurship Association. The MSUEA is a registered student organization open to all majors who are passionate about entrepreneurship. Find out more at msuea.org.
Excellent. It is about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Tuesday evening. It's 60 degrees, blazing hot outside here in East Lansing, Michigan in mid-April. Tonight's guest was just telling us how it's in the 80s where she's from, in the Atlanta area. So hopefully that will be coming Michigan's way sooner rather than later, although Paul mentioned we might have snow in a few days. So that's classic Michigan. But nevertheless, hard to believe for all of you that are kind of tuning in or starting to join us as we speak. Tonight is the last Innovate State of the 2020-2021 academic year for the Michigan State community. It is so hard to believe. It's been a wonderful, amazing season. Thinking back to all of the crazy cool and accomplished, smart and innovative Spartans and entrepreneurs that we've been able to feature for the last 9 months. So rest assured tonight, we're going to end with a bang. Tonight's going to be an awesome program. Really excited for tonight's guest to be able to share her knowledge and expertise with our community. Before I get to that, just want to remind folks that if you are interested in watching previous Innovate State conversations, you can go to eship.msu.edu. And there we have archived all of the video conversations from not only this year, which again, they've been all virtual, so they're really easy to watch and it's great stuff to digest, but you can actually consume content from previous years Innovate State at that same website as well. So it's like a treasure trove of great information. So again, that's eship.msu.edu. Also want to thank Gavin Hubbard, student founder within the Burgess Institute Student Venture Creation Program. We were able to incorporate the platform that he's helped develop named Catch within tonight's program. So some of you might have been able to engage in that platform. We thank Gavin for collaborating with us. It's awesome. It's always awesome to work with our students, especially when they create something that can work with the program that we're currently deploying. So thanks again to Gavin for working with us on that, and looking forward to see how we can partner again in the future. Typically, when I do these announcements, we have many upcoming programs and events to promote, but because we are at the tail end of the spring semester, we don't actually have a lot of programming coming up. I'll just give a couple ongoing reminders that if you're a student watching tonight, we always encourage you to contact us to learn more about the wealth of programs and opportunities that we provide or that we promote to our students. And that includes the venture creation program. So if you have an idea for a venture, a project, a startup, let us know and we'd love to work with you. If you're interested in the academic side of things, we offer a academic minor in entrepreneurship innovation. So I know for those of you that are seniors, you're graduating in a few weeks, so that's not top of mind for you. But for the rest of our students, or if you're looking into graduate school, because we work with graduate students, please contact us and let us know. We'd love to figure out ways to work with you. If you're an alumnus or an alumna of Michigan State or friends of the Spartan community and you're watching this evening, reminder that we always have opportunities for involvement in getting folks involved with our program. We just recently completed this past weekend our 4th 2-day venture, formerly called Startup Weekend of the academic year. It was really, really fun to see our students come together over 36 hours and pitch some really cool venture ideas. And we bring in alumni to do some mentoring and coaching throughout those 2-day programs. So there'll be future opportunities. Let us know if you're interested. I think that's about it, just in terms of run a show for tonight. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Paul Jakes, who will be moderating tonight's conversation. If you are interested in asking a question of our featured speaker tonight, go ahead and drop that in the Q&A functionality of tonight's Zoom webinar. And you can actually drop questions there, and we're going to be monitoring it for the night, for this evening, and we'll try to make sure that question gets asked. If Paul doesn't see it, we'll be able to feed it to him. So go ahead, don't hesitate, drop questions there. And this conversation will probably last about an hour. It might last a little bit longer than 7 o'clock, but rest assured, you're going to really enjoy tonight's program. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Paul Jakes, Managing Director for Venture Creation with the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Michigan State. Take it away, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it. And Jasmine, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Straight out of Atlanta. I know, as Chris said, the weather is a lot nicer there. And so hopefully you bring some sunshine this way. So, well, yeah, you're so welcome. So welcome. So one of the things that we really like to start out with is just talking about you know, where you're from, and really thinking about why you started at MSU.
Yeah, so I'm from Lansing. Actually born in Houston, but moved to Lansing, I think about 5 or 6. So Lansing resident, graduated from Sexton. So definitely, you know, local to the MSU community. However, I didn't start at MSU. I actually went to Florida A&M for my first 2 years of school, and then transferred to Michigan State going into my junior year. And primarily it was financial. My mother works for Michigan State. She's still there. So I got half off tuition. So it was just
great reason,
a great financial reason to attend. But
so what
I definitely enjoyed it.
With Florida A&M, you know, was it, I know a lot of students who live close, you know, if they're in Michigan, was it I want to get away to Florida, or was it Florida A&M that had the draw for what your major was? Yeah,
no, it was really the draw. So I had 2 cousins that had graduated from FAMU. So just kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps. Didn't want to get away from home. I'm an only child. So, you know, wanted to go somewhere else, experience life, and kind of see, you know, what it was like to not be in the same city that I was raised. But even when I came back to state, I really stayed in East Lansing. Like I really wanted to immerse myself in the college community. So I don't even think I went home that much, maybe like once a week to see my mom, but
gotcha.
I really tried to keep the college spirit going.
Now, with your mom working here, were you familiar with the university and what it was, or was it all pretty?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So think about that first day, a couple years ago when you were at Michigan State. Do you remember of coming there, and maybe the thoughts of either where you lived and, you know, what it was that really, you know, that you loved being at MSU?
So coming from Florida A&M to Michigan State, I mean, it's a huge difference. The campus size just of state is, you know, humongous. So just going from a classroom, I would say, of about maybe max 80 to 100 students to then going to 600 to 800 students was a little bit of a shell shock, I would say. Navigating the campus, definitely, you know, recall being lost. I didn't stay, since I was a junior, I didn't stay in a dorm. So I lived in Spartan Village. I don't even know what I think it's called something else now, or they tore it down. I don't know.
Parts of it are still there.
Okay.
Yep.
So I lived in the Ville is what we used to call it. And and I had a car. So really, you know, just kind of got lost going around the campus. But, you know, definitely just remember seeing just, you know, so much pride of everyone that, you know, was attending the school, even being in the classroom of such large large classrooms, I always made it a point to still try to get to know my professors, because that was one of the things that I loved about being at in HBCU. It was very small and very intimate, and you really got to know your professor. So I would always try to take the time out to talk to my professors after class, like to make sure that they knew me by name. Primarily because if you're on a curve, then they remember you.
That's right.
Up a little bit.
You had it figured out. So when you were at Florida, did you have a major already picked out when you were there? Did you switch, or then come to MSU? Did you do something different?
No, so I wanted to do business, but so I was just taking kind of like general business classes while I was in school. And actually, my mom told me about a program in Michigan State. It was fairly new. She said, you've always liked fashion. You've always kind of been into fashion and retail. They have this retail merchandising program that, teaches you kind of the corporate side of retail. So I thought that was really interesting and something that I could make a career out of. So essentially, my mom is the one that kind of put the bug in my ear.
And that was that in Com Arts when that was in?
So it wasn't in Com Arts then. It was I think it was in human ecology first, and then they moved it to Com Arts.
In the small building next to
Yes.
Com Arts? Okay. Exactly. All right. So, well, that's great. And I think it's not a major here anymore. I don't think
which is so, yeah, I was asking someone about that recently. Like, it's interesting because then nobody knew what a retail buyer was. Like, I remember going to the career fair and always having to explain, like, okay, well, what are you trying to do? What is nobody understood what it was. So they were always trying to put you on like what was called like the store track. So you would go and work in a store as a manager, and then, they would want you kind of work your way up through the ranks that way, which was not something I was interested in. So I find it interesting that it's no longer a major because it's huge now. Like, there are so many buyers. People are privy to what a buyer is. I mean, every large retail organization, actually large or small, has a merchandising department. They have a corporate buying team. So I find it, really kind of disheartening that state kind of got rid of that.
So when you're in that major, you were looking directly at being a buyer. So you kind of knew what that was. Okay.
Yes.
That's so interesting. So did you, because I think a lot of them don't think about that now, they'll get into some type of merchandising. Like you said, they'll start at the bottom of working at like a Target or something, and maybe going through the manager role, and then eventually become a buyer. So maybe it's not just the route that they do.
No, I didn't want to do that. I had worked in stores that was my job. So I remember my college job, I worked at DSW right in Eastwood. So I actually helped open the store. I've always worked in retail stores, so I knew what that path looked like. And I knew that that's not what I wanted. I wanted the Sex in the City, fabulous fashion life.
So you had the retail jobs. Did you get into any type of internships that you were in your school?
So I did I have internships? I did. So Disney would come recruit at state often. So Disney had I think it was like a 6-month, because I had moved back to Florida, but it was like a 6-month merchandising internship where you got credit. So I did that internship during school. I think that was it. I graduated a while ago. So
you talk about the Sex in the City, the things that you wanted to see. You're working at places. When did you start thinking of your company or starting your own company? When did that happen while you were in school, or did it happen?
No, not at all. So after I graduated and throughout school, I did we used to have a study abroad. So my professors, two of my main professors, was Dr. Linda Good and Dr. Patricia Huddleston.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a study abroad trip. So I went to Russia and Poland. We studied like retail distribution and things like that. So I had, a pretty good grasp on what I wanted to do career-wise. I just was not in the place to do it. So, Michigan, I think Meyer might have been one of the opportunities, but like I said, I wanted to live this fabulous fashion life. So I moved to New York. I moved to New York City to be a part
How was
of
that?
that.
I mean, talk about that. That is to be a person from Michigan. I mean, you were in Florida, which is a lot bigger, but for a person in Michigan to go to New York City, how was that transition?
Yeah, it was scary. You're going to New York City, so it was scary, but it was also a risk I wanted to take. Like, and even to this day, I don't believe in, if there's something I want to try, if there's something that I want to do, I don't want to live my life with any regrets of things that, maybe shoulda, woulda, coulda, maybe I shoulda did that. And so I wanted to live in New York. And at the time, an old college friend lived in New Jersey, and then my best friend lived in Harlem. So I had, friends that were there, and I actually ended up moving in with one of my old college friends. You could rent out rooms in New York. And so rented out a room in Jersey. I mean, the process happened so quick. It literally was like a month. I said, I'm moving to New York, and it just really started to make plans, because one of the things, and I don't know if it's changed now, but back then, trying to apply for jobs, like, you had to be in New York City, right. Or you were using like a fake address. And I remember I had an interview with Macy's, and they called me, and I wasn't in New York, but I had used my best friend's address. So then I had to find a flight. And when I went to that interview, I was like, I have to move to this city. So literally like a month after that, I moved there, and that was the best place. I wouldn't live there anymore, but that was just being young in my 20s. Like, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and you're talking about a trick that a lot of interns and companies, I used to do internships on campus, and yeah, that was a trick of putting your address there, or even making your number to be there too. So when you got into New York, and I know I worked with a lot of students in the past, or recent grads, they would take a job at a Macy's or at a Saks Fifth or somewhere else that was kind of bottom of the barrel, where they'd be like, listen, you're doing this.
Yeah.
Was it like that? Did you start with that?
I started at Tiffany & Company. And so I started as a merchandise assistant. And so I would be responsible for all of the inventory counts of the store. So Tiffany's flagship store is on Fifth Ave. And so that's where their offices were. And so being responsible, for that, sometimes I would have to pack orders and ship orders, but mainly it was to, count every piece of jewelry that was on the floor to make sure that it matched the systems. And obviously that wasn't the job that I wanted to do, but it did lead me to the next opportunity I had, which was to start at Saks. So Saks was like I remember an old Friends episode with Rachel was like, the mothership has called me home. Like, Saks was like the pinnacle of fashion. And so started at the bottom there as well as a merchandise assistant, and then promoted to assistant buyer. But that's really where, I got to see the inside of a fashion organization, of working with domestic vendors, working with international vendors, working with, major brands, how you put together assortments and marketing plans and understanding open to buy and all of these things that I had learned in school, but now I was able to actually apply it.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of students see is they want to see the glamorous stuff. They want to work with the material or the designers, and even the getting into the buyers. But it sounds like those aren't positions that you just jump into. I mean, you have to put your time in, and it sounds like you did that to move into.
Especially in a city like New York, where it's so competitive. I mean, most fashion offices are there. So, and then you have 3 major fashion schools that are there. So, being able to, you can't just jump in, you kind of have to work from the bottom and prove yourself.
How do you think you set yourself apart? From I mean, was it showing to them that you put in the hours and the time, or your grit, or I mean, what was it?
Yeah, it was a lot lot of grind work, going above and beyond. So on Mondays are always, and this is still very true in corporate retail, but Mondays are always like report days, because you're getting, now we can do more in time reporting. So you can see things more in real time. But at that time, you used to have to wait until the weekend was over to get the sales from the weekend. So Mondays, I would always have this big stack of reports on my boss's desk before she got there, making sure that she had everything she needed, things highlighted. If you've ever seen the movie Devil Wears Prada, it's very much that type of environment when you're working at, a company like Saks. So it was, really going above and beyond, staying later hours, coming in earlier, just so you can be seen, just so you can, be on the elevator with the DMM and say hi, things like that.
So you're in there, you're moving up the ladder, you're moving as assistant buyer. Were you still thinking, okay, I want to be more of a buyer, I want to do this? Or were you in your head thinking, I want to start my own company? How did that go?
So during this time, I definitely said, oh, this is not what I want to do anymore.
Why was that?
Because it's like Devil Wears Prada. It's very.
And how far in? Was that years in, or?
About 2 years in. It's very much it's very cliquey, very catty. These are fashion girls. And so that, just wasn't my vibe. And so at the time, I started to do styling at the same time. And so
can you explain that more for some
yeah,
people?
like fashion styling. So like I said, always interested in fashion, and I had saw this is about to date me. So I had saw a posting for an intern on MySpace. And it said, looking for a celebrity fashion assistant intern, but it didn't have much information. It was like, come to this meeting at such and such time. And I was like, again, being a risk taker, like, whatever, I'll see. And so I had really started to, just be interested in fashion, like, okay, styling. So styling is when you are, picking the clothes, for photo shoots, for celebrities. If you do the celebrity styling route, there's wardrobe styling where you do movies and TV and film. There's personal styling where you work with, the everyday person on their wardrobe. So I was more in the celebrity and wardrobe space. And when I went to this meeting, it happened to be for the rapper 50 Cent. So it was like kind of like a hazing period. So with his main stylist, not with him, but with the stylist who was his main stylist. And so I worked for free, and I worked at Saks and this styling gig for 3 months for free. And their offices just happened to be on the same street as Saks in New York. So I would just leave one job and go to the other. I would go and pack the bags for the tours and things like that. And so I started to really get more into it. And eventually it turned into a paid, opportunity, and I was moved to the assistant fashion stylist. So I was, we were doing shows, concerts. I mean, at this time, 50's still big, but he was like really, really, really big then. And so we were getting ready for movies. And so it was just a lot of, things happening that I couldn't do both jobs anymore. So I ended up leaving Saks and doing styling full time. So I have a few, credits on some movies and videos, and got to travel, overseas, international tours, fly on private jets. I mean, it was like a rock star lifestyle.
So how cool was that? For one, I'm laughing at the MySpace because hopefully the students on this even know what that is. I for sure know what it is. But for you to take that leap and not even knowing, who it was for, and you took that chance to get in there and then found out this is for 50 Cent. That's so cool. And work for free, which is another thing. Again, putting in your time. You were doing two things and it turned into what it was. That's awesome. So you got into styling.
I did. So did that for About probably a year and a half, like I said, working on movies, videos. I would also do work with New York Fashion Week, so dressing the models for the shows. And so again, just really, really cool. But I was like, okay, it's very draining. So I remember, not being able to come home as much and not being able to see my family. I remember I was able to go home, I think, for like a day. And as soon as I got off the plane, I had a BlackBerry, and it was like all these messages like, hey, we have to leave for LA tomorrow. And I'm just like, oh, like, I can't do this. So I then transitioned to graduate school. So I transitioned and went to get my MBA. So I was like, I want something more stable. I want this 6-figure salary that all of these MBA students get. And so I went and got my MBA, and I did an internship in finance with Accenture. And I was managing global gas trends, which was probably, you go from being on video sets to looking at spreadsheets about global gas. It was very boring. And I was like, okay, nope, can't do finance. Don't want to do finance. And I missed kind of, for any students that might be on that are in their field, no offense, but it's a very secluded role. It's very, it's very secluded. And so I needed people interaction. I needed, to be able to touch and feel product. And so after I graduated with my MBA, I did actually end up going back into buying. So I went to Office Depot and was the associate buyer over consumer electronics. So,
wow, what a flip! Going from 50 Cent fashion, runway, to global gas trends. But I'm sure you learned a ton along the way. And one of the things I know a lot of the students will ask, a lot of them will say, I want to do consulting, and I don't even know if they know exactly what that means. You get into a place like Accenture, which is, it's a great place to learn. I know there's a pretty big burnout time too, because they put you through the gamut.
Yeah. That.
But you don't really have a. Do you have a choice of who you get to work with? You work with global gas.
In terms of your clients, no. So I was like just added to I think it was Chevron. So I was just added to the Chevron account. So no, you don't really get a choice. And it's definitely a lot of burnout, especially if you're, then we were traveling. So you go to the client sites, and, those consultants, you'll be on the site for 6 days, 5-6 days.
Yeah.
So a lot of burnout. But
so at Office Depot, which is not the runway, not 50 Cent, and I'm sure you enjoyed parts of it, but you're missing more.
Yeah. So Depot was cool. It was a great team, great energy, and I still had a bit of fashion because one of my categories was phone cases. So
was that local, or where was that?
No, Depot's headquarters is in Boca, so South Florida.
Gotcha.
So so now I'm back in Florida. And so I still had a bit of a fashion, some fashion and fun with those categories, but also managed cameras and phone, like charging cases and things like that. So it was really cool. Like I said, I had a really good team at Depot. During that time is before they merged with Max. So there was a little bit of uncertainty in terms of, hey, will I still have a job? After this merger, I did not have any family in South Florida. So felt like I was just kind of like far away and just working. And so an opportunity came to go to Sears. And I was like, they're not in the best position financially, is that a move I really want to make? However, it was in home appliances, which is what we would call safe in a retail organization. Like if anything goes, home appliances would be the last, because that's the bread and butter. So right. I've gone from, clothes to phone cases to now vacuums and microwaves and sewing machines were my categories. But I went for the opportunity to work for big box. So Office Depot is pretty big, but Sears is bigger just in terms of volume. And so that will look really good on my resume because I was managing about $250 million. So.
And did you have to move, or were you still in Florida?
Yep. So I was in Chicago. So then moved to Chicago. So yeah, as you can see, I've been all over the map.
I'm drawing a map in my head. Yes.
Yep. Fly all around. And so, yeah, so I went to Chicago and was managing that category for about 2 years. And that's probably when I started to get the bug a little bit of entrepreneurship. Just, working at these different companies just wasn't still feeling fulfilled. Feeling like something was missing. Even after that, I still went to another company where I had so many categories. It was True Value Hardware, and I had like 10 different. It was so random. I had batteries, I had fire safety, I had phone cases again, I had timers and sensors. I had the stuff behind the wall in your house. So like rough electrical things I never knew anything about, but that's the beauty of, I would say, the education that I had, being at State and being in the program that I was in for retail buying, because the information, it's universal. Like I can go to all these different categories because the fundamentals of being a buyer don't change. All I needed to do was just learn, the business insights of these new categories. And so that's how I was really able to move throughout all of these different industries. Mm-hmm. And so, so I was at True Value for 3 years. Again, still kind of having, since I had consumer electronics, I had some cool categories. So I had smart home. So they didn't have any smart home before. I had connections from being at Office Depot. So, I brought in some of the industry leaders to that assortment. And just really, did some great things. Got to go to CES all the time. So just really, fun techie things, I would say, but definitely at a very, very small organization, from going to a Sears to, something like a True Value. It's like two totally different worlds because they aren't a big box, so they don't necessarily operate and aren't structured the same. And so I would say probably about a year and a half of being in, I started to really get the bug. Like, okay, I can't do I can't do this for the rest of my life. And so at that time, that's when I started to research more. So I just really started to research entrepreneurship. Okay, what am I passionate about? What do I miss? And that was, fashion. That was, being able to make and empower women to look and feel good through clothing. So that's when I started the process of launching Shift Style House.
Now, what did you know? Like, you had all this great corporate experience and you had this retail experience, but starting a business, did you know, how to set up an entity or getting insurance? Doing anything, did you know?
Yeah,
it's
totally different. I knew so much about the corporate retail aspect, but I wasn't connecting that to being an entrepreneur, to being a business owner. So no, I didn't know. I hired, an attorney. So that was one of the great things, that I built my business while I was still in corporate. So that was my, that was my investor. So I, hired a business attorney to, do all of that legal stuff because I did not know. I know I needed an LLC. I know I needed an EIN. I know I needed these things, but definitely outsourced to do it.
So so talk about the business. So what did you start and why, and how did it happen?
Yeah, so I started Shift Style House, launched officially April 18th of 2016. So Shift will be 5 on this coming Sunday.
And you were still working corporate? I'm
still working in corporate, okay. Yes, yep. So launched Shift Style House, and really just out of a need. I was seeing so many boutiques pop up, and I was seeing all these. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody has a boutique. Like, do they have a background in this? How do they know how to do this? Well, if they know how to do this, then I know how to do it because I've worked in it. And so I was tired of just seeing like clothing that didn't fit, you know, the lifestyle. My customer to this day is a boss woman on the go. She's, you know, modern. She mixes, you know, highs and lows, but she likes to look good. She likes quality pieces that, you know, every store is not going to have. And so that was really my, you know, focus, and my mission was to be able to provide that. And so that's why I started it, was to empower women with confidence and style through my clothing.
So with Shift Style House, is it brick and mortar? Is it online?
It is online. I've had some great pop-up opportunities. So my brand was in Macy's here in Atlanta. Might have another store venture coming up in a few months that I can't speak on yet, but, you know, definitely had some great opportunities of where, you know, customers were able to come in store, but primarily our growth has been online.
So in those, so your corporate, how long did it take you to leave? When you were working corporate from that move?
So I started, it was about 3 years.
3 years into it,
Yeah.
you get into that. So the 5 years that you've had Shift Style House, talk about the, well, everything I'm sure has been perfect. So, and I think a lot of the students that talk about this, they see some of these individuals who make these companies, and on the end of it, everything just looks beautiful. Everything's run smoothly. I mean, talk about some ups and downs.
Yeah. So, especially when you're in it full time. So I've been, you know, full-time entrepreneur for over 2 years now. And, you know, it's a roller coaster. It really is a roller coaster. I would say mental, like the mental, the mental that it takes to just, you know, be like, you have to motivate yourself. You have to, there's nobody that, you know, making sure that you clocked in. There's nobody that's making sure your work is done. So you have to be really accountable and dedicated to the work and the journey. So, you know, understanding, especially in something like fashion, that, you know, it might not be sales every day. It may not be, you know, people on the site every day actually buying, but the following week, everybody could be on the site buying, and you've made your whole, you know, you've made the whole month in a day. And so just kind of understanding, you know, those triggers, really being able to take the good with the bad and to keep going. So just about 2 months ago, I had a very bad vendor issue where they lost my boxes. So I had done pre-orders of a really popular style. It was selling like crazy. And all of a sudden the tracking said that it was going to like Texas or something. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not. Not where I live. And it, you know, it turned out that they couldn't find the boxes. And so I had to do returns of like $7,000, which, you know, as a business owner, I don't want to do a return of anything, you know, $1. I'm like, no, you know, every dollar counts. And so even dealing with that, because then you have to, you know, put your big girl pants on and, you know, then you have to really get into the customer service, you know, piece of it, of letting customers know, hey, this is what's going on. I believe in authenticity and transparency. So I was very transparent, you know, with the customers when we thought we were still going to get the boxes, like, hey, this is what's going on. This is why it hasn't shipped. And then I believe in, you know, being a business of integrity. And so once I realized that, you know, they weren't coming, or I didn't know when they were coming, you know, I refunded everyone. You know, some companies, I've had orders from some big brands that, you know, the shipment might be a little more delayed, but they didn't refund me. It's, you just wait.
Or respond.
You wait and you get it, whenever you get it. And so I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I always try to put myself in the seat of what my consumers are thinking and feeling, and knowing that, if I was waiting on something, then, and I don't know when it's coming, then, I will want my money back. So, I just dealt with that a few months ago.
Wow. Well, there's a couple questions here I want to dive into, and we'll get into more, but one from Gerald that says, what are some key lessons that you learned while working for your first internship, and how do those lessons transpire in your career today?
Yep. So I would say some of the key lessons, again, just goes back to hard work, dedication, being accountable, being responsible, and putting, not being afraid to do the work. So I'll pack orders, I'll steam clothes, whatever work has to be done. And that was the same when I was doing, internships. When you're in internship, you might be getting the coffee or, picking up the paper from the printers, that I remember having to do that when I was an intern, like,
yeah. And not saying that's not my job. That's not in
right. I don't do that. That's, willing to do the work. I would definitely say are some key things that I still, have with me.
Okay. And then another question from, from Eileen. How did you raise your initial capital? Was it friends and family? Did you get any type of investment? Did you bootstrap it? How'd it go?
Yeah, it was bootstrapped. So from corporate. So I would take a percentage of my check and put it back into the business. Anything that came in went back into the business. So even to this day, that's still kind of, how I like to operate. It's what, if I take this, we made this in sales, what percentage of that can I now go put into Facebook ads, which will, triple that sales? So it's, it's always kind of recycled and goes back into the business. But yeah, no funding or anything like that. It was all from and mind you, at this time when I started and when I was in corporate, I was making good. I was making six figures. So it was,
And that's, that's an interesting thing. There is an average out there, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's the average entrepreneur these days is in their 40s, because they go out and work and then they use some of their funds.
Yeah.
But think about if you were a student and you had this idea, you didn't gain the ton of experience that you have, but if you had an early stage idea, how would you go about that? How would you try to raise? You'd have to get some funds from somewhere. Would it be friends and family? What would you think?
Definitely, I would definitely probably start with friends and family, just because depending on, what type of VC you're trying to do, if, somebody wants a percentage of your business, you may not be willing to do that yet. So I definitely would have started with friends and family, potentially working side jobs and odd jobs to, get some cash flow coming in that could pay, for business cards or, could pay for your first production run. But definitely probably starting with friends and family. Once that got going, probably applying for grants. Versus again to, just depending on what your goal is as an entrepreneur, some capital is, you may not be ready for yet. So just really trying to get all of the free things that you can, I would say is the best way to start.
Free money is the best money, as I would say. Another question here from Harold. It's kind of a two-part question, but do you have a business mentor, or did you have one in the past? And what's the most important thing they've taught you?
So I do, and honestly, I would say, I've had a few, but I would say one of the most important things that I've been taught is to invest in your business. And so it's easier said than done, but a lot of people don't understand that it takes money to make money. And so it and I know that's a cliche, but it's true. Like you can't so what I've realized with a lot of entrepreneurs, so, you see everybody making all this money online, they make it seem, super easy. And so you want to have these, 10K days or these 100K months, but do you have the inventory that can support, that type of sales? And most likely you don't, because you haven't even purchased that amount of inventory that would require you to even be able to make $100,000 a month. And so that's something that I really learned is like, if you have these goals, if you have these big goals, then you have to be willing to invest in what it's going to take to make those goals happen. So, don't think that you can have $100 worth of inventory and that's going to flip to 100K. Like, mathematically it just wouldn't work out. So
That's some great advice. Another question on that is there any books that you're reading right now that, inspire you, or maybe something you've read in the past or now?
Yes. So I read probably like 5 books at the same time. And so currently reading 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, which I think is a great, just the way he thinks, I think is really interesting for entrepreneurs. The other book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So that really helps you to build good habits and not just build a habit to reach a goal, but to really build a habit so that you're able to sustain it. And again, being a full-time entrepreneur, you have to have really good habits to maintain being in business. Also, one that I just currently finished reading was Vivid Vision, and that really just helps you think of your business on a larger scale. Like, what is the overall, vision that you see? What is your corporate structure look like if you were to have one? What does your organizational chart look like if you have one? And then what else? Because I do a variety of like physical and audible. Mm-hmm. So those
what
are
about your book? I mean, where do you have a dynamic story? When's your book dropping?
You are the like the 5th person that has said that. Hey. So I keep hearing this. So perhaps that is something. Oh, the other one is the 4 Agreements.
Gotcha.
That is the other one, and that's by Don Miguel Ruiz. And really just teaches you to not take things so personally. As an entrepreneur, we can be sensitive. We are told no a lot. So it really just kind of helps you to think and look at things differently.
Okay. Another question here from Jackie. So how do you reach new customers, and what have been your most successful marketing efforts?
Yep. So when you're thinking about new customers, you have to think about the journey that you're taking them on and the funnel. So it's a continuous cycle. You always want to be bringing new customers onto your website, onto your social media pages, whatever that first point of contact is the first step in your customer journey funnel. So for me, it's been social media ads. So I mean, there are billions of people in the world that I know have not seen or known about Shift Style House. So I'm consistently running what are called cold traffic ads, which is, people that aren't familiar with your brand, to audiences that look similar to those that are already familiar with the brand. So lookalike audiences, what they're called in Facebook, if you're familiar with the back end of Facebook Business Manager. But I'm constantly driving cold audiences in and retargeting those that have come onto the website but didn't purchase. So it's always kind of like a in and out, like, hey, this is where I'm just getting some brand awareness. Oh, I've never seen this brand. Let me go onto their website. Let me click around. Oh, I'm not going to buy anything. And then you're going to be retargeted like, hey, so you looking around? And, oh, I see this brand again. And I know, everyone has probably seen it, being on social media, like, how do they know that I was, just looking at that? Because those are retargeting ads. So Facebook and Instagram has definitely been my most successful marketing efforts in terms of conversion. I would say one that a lot of business owners have not tapped into is Pinterest. Pinterest is a great channel for traffic building because they're like, they have so much SEO, just like Google. And so Pinterest is another one where I've gotten up to 1 million views, in a month by just running Pinterest traffic ads and just bringing people onto the site that, may not have been there before, because that's a different audience. And so I would say those two have been my most successful.
Getting into Snapchat or TikTok? Anything like that?
I have not. So I have not.
I hear the anxiety in your voice.
Yeah, it's so much. It's so many things. Reels, yes. Reels, I think, but I think because it's in, the Instagram platform, already familiar, with the tools of the platform. But TikTok, I just have not tapped into the TikTok space. What I need is a young person that's into all of these things to manage it.
Right. Yeah, it's tough to understand, but I just know that it's blowing up and it's where they're seeing it. Maybe you and I don't understand a bit of it, but
right.
I know that there's ways to get in there. Another question here from an anonymous person. When deciding what clothing to produce, do you accommodate for your customers or do you make the products based on your own style?
You do not. I do not do anything based on my personal preference, and reason being, so I'll say this: when you're first starting out, you're not going to know. Like you aren't going to know. Entrepreneurship is all about testing and tweaking. It's all about testing and trying new methods, seeing what works, what didn't work, and analyzing why it didn't work. And so when you're first starting out, you aren't going to know. But as I've learned to engage, like I really engage with my audience. I ask polls, I send surveys, flat out, what do you want to see? What didn't you like about this? And that's where you start to build that know, like, and trust factor. But everything is built based on what they want. So I don't, do anything. I do it based on what they like, what they want to see, and what the numbers tell me, what the data tells me. So if the data tells me that more people are buying dresses over shirts, or more people are buying, printed styles over solids, then I'm going to add more of what's working based on what the numbers say.
It's gotta be so difficult to keep up with the trends. I'm sure it's gotta, every day, I have kids and I see them. The 80s are back, which was a horrible time, but the 80s are back and they're wearing clothes and shoes that I used to have in high school. And how do you, is it employees that how do you keep up with stuff?
So one of the things that I would say I've always incorporated into the brand is not being a trend focused business. And so a lot of the pieces when I'm looking and buying and going on buying trips, it's what can she have in her closet for years to come, and how many different ways can she actually wear this. So we focus more, I would say probably about 70% of the assortment are more, versatile pieces. And then that other percent will have like a pop of trend. So it's, signature styles, versatile styles, quality styles with hints of trend kind of sprinkled in there. Gotcha. Because when you do a trend focused brand, so think of like a Fashion Nova, they're constantly, they have to always be on top of, what's going on. They have to constantly be, new arrivals. I can't even imagine. I think they do like 400 plus new arrivals a day. But that's because they are a trend focused brand. Yeah.
So this one's kind of a long one, I'll read this, but how will this circular supply chain model impact retailers and brands as well as consumer behavior given Nike's latest initiative, Refurbished, in support of their Move to Zero initiative to improve footwear life cycle and reduce waste?
That was really long.
Yes, it was.
I don't know if I understand the question. I'm not.
It sounds like Nike is doing a new
Okay,
initiative.
Nike's doing something with refurbished
Yeah.
shoes.
Maybe talking about more of the sustainable type products, or your products. Do you get in the sustainable area or reducing waste?
I have not yet. So some are, some are eco-friendly styles, but I have not. And I am one that will not speak to what I have not tapped into.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question to the best of my ability.
No problem. So thinking about going back, I want to say as a student, and I was trying to get to this question before, we do teach these students, really, we don't teach them to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But we have them dip their toes of learning the process. Talk about that. Would it have been helpful for you to kind of just know the language of know certain things as you go through school?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I said it when, I first started communicating with you guys. Like, we didn't have this program at State. It definitely would have been helpful, just because, as an entrepreneur, you're learning so much of it. Like I said, is trial and error. So much of it is, testing it out and seeing how it works. So I think if, I would have been equipped in school to at least, understand a little bit of it, then that definitely would have helped.
Yeah, and I could still see a very similar trajectory of learning the process and then maybe not starting that company because of resources and different things, going into the corporate world and then knowing that in the back of your head, getting some dollars to fund yourself to move into that, and then having that knowledge to move yourself forward. So I think that'll be a kind of a mix of teams that we'll see, ones that are going to launch their ideas and then ones down the road.
Right.
I think it'd be a really good mix. I have a quick question too, just a curious one of mine. When you were at Sears, and I've done case studies on Sears before, did you see the writing on the wall when you were there? Because the story was that they were fat, and they were the best thing. And these new guys coming in that were Walmart and Amazon, they were almost laughing at them, saying, "We're not going online. We're sticking to big box." I mean, did you see that while you were there?
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of the thing with the, I would say the more traditional big box brands, is that they're slower to react. They're slower to move, where, as we were in a pandemic, Amazon's growth, because they, have always been primarily e-commerce and focused on online, they were able to react quicker than a Sears, who, has put more focus on in-store. So I would say I definitely saw it, being in the buyer seat. We always were looking at competition, but we couldn't react as quickly. So there are different tools and things. We would do what are called price scrapes to see, kind of what's on Amazon, what's on Walmart.com. But, it might take a day or two for our team to be able to actually go and then match the pricing, because the tools were outdated. So, they definitely were slow to getting into the game, for sure.
I think we had one of the last Sears in Lansing. In our area, but that's gone. The building's still there, but it's almost gone. Get back to a couple last questions. What kept you motivated on your journey, and who was your inspiration?
Yes, I am a faith-driven woman. So, I believe in God. I believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and so prayer and faith. Entrepreneurship is a faith walk. It really is. Knowing that you have this vision, you have this thing that you want to see grow and be successful, and realizing that you can't quit until that thing is fulfilled, until that has come to fruition, has really kept me. I know that there's still so much more 4 shift. So I know that, I can't give up. I can't quit because I know that it hasn't reached its full capacity yet. So really what keeps me motivated is my faith and me, trusting God to lead and direct my path as well as the path of the business.
Wow, thank you for that. That's amazing. Any last things to tell the students? Anything that you'd like to say to them before we go?
Take the risk. Take the risk. If there was anything that you could take away from me, as you could see as I walked you through my journey, is that I was never afraid to take a risk and try something, no matter how it turned out, because there was a lesson in each of those things. There was a lesson from every corporate place that I worked at. There was a lesson from when I was a stylist. There was each piece has been a part of the journey and a part of the lesson to lead me where I am now. And so don't be afraid to embark on whatever your dreams and your desires are.
That's awesome. Jasmine, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I know we could be talking for the rest of the night. We want to be telling everybody, but we hope that when you're back into the Lansing area that you stop by the Hatch in our space, and then we're down in Atlanta. We'd love to see you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go green.
Go white.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
The Hatchcast is sponsored in part by Spartan Innovations. Spartan Innovations provides startups spinning out of MSU's ecosystem the commercialization, support, and financial resources necessary to turn MSU research technologies into successful Michigan businesses.
Hatchcast is an ongoing
Hatchcast is an ongoing collaboration.
This podcast was co-created by Aaron Richard, Tyler Mihai,
And Kurt Krieger.
It is produced by the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation in cooperation with the MSU
Foundation.
Gabe Hales
And Justice Keach are our sound engineers and
editors. Our co-producers include Brandon Weaver, Gabe Hales.
Justice Keach and Aaron Richard.
Original sound is created by Katya Gaudina,
With help from Aubrey Haas,
Brandon Weaver,
Caitlin Setter,
Sydney Owinga, Kurt Krieger, Tyler Mihai,
Gabriella Alum,
Jeff Smith, Paul Jakes, Ken Smusiak, Desiree Melfi-Bozo,
Neil Kane,
and Lori Fisher. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out at
hatchcast@msu.edu.
hatchcast@msu.edu. hatchcast@msu.edu.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.